Based on your experience, what were the most important criteria to select the participants?
I think this is probably ensuring that they had the correct authority and the facilities in place to work with the pathogen that we were including in the TPS, and also to ask and ensure that they had the necessary equipment to carry out each of the methods which they'd selected to participate in.
These were if participants have quality assurance in place, then technical expertise for the past group, which in our case was plant viruses, and expertise with the use of the method.
Well, the selection of participants in our project was based on self-declared estimation of their experience, level of experience. And it's always that a question, how do you define that? Is it how many years somebody is performing a method, or how many samples do they analyze per year? And of course, you do expect that with novel methods, participants and the organizers will have a bit less expertise, but you need to accept this. We started with a number of different criteria, and in the end we realized that there were a few that were really critical and that would lead to an exclusion of participant if they were not met. And these were basically criteria that would prevent participants doing the work anyway. So they included whether they could not dedicate the time to meet the schedule, to perform the analysis on time. They were not allowed to work with a specific pathogen, for example, or they declared that they did not have any traceability system in place in the laboratory. However, I have to say that in our test performance studies, participants had some time to rectify this, and in many cases they were then able to correct this and finally take part in the TPS.
The most important criterion was the existence of a quality assurance or traceability system in place.
There were several. The most important for us was previous experience with the methods used in the TPS. But also important was, of course, well, essential basically is the availability of equipment that is needed to perform the tests that we were using in the TPS. And it was also preferable to have an experience with the pathogen or pathogens that are similar to mpox virus in this case.
According to me, for a TPS, the most important criterion to select the participants is their competence, but it is not always easy to evaluate.
Being tomato brown rugose fruit virus an emergent pathogen, in our opinion, the most important criterion to select participants was the diagnostic expertise in similar pathogens. Also, the other important criteria are the knowledge of methods selected for TPS and previous participation in TPS.
Selection can be based on their technical experience and regarding if quality assurance or at least traceability is in place in the lab.
Did you encounter any difficulty to select the participants?
I would say that it's quite challenging. And if I give example from our TPS studies, with the assessment that we did, we still got certain % of unusable results. So data sets where participants reported, let's say, wrong results for positive and negative controls that were included. So in the end, we got 80% of data sets that were okay in each of the TPS that we organized. And I would say that if we tried to put a very rigorous selection process in place, we could improve that. We could get maybe to 90–95% of usable data set. But on the other hand, I would not like to change this much, because I see TPS also as a way of learning, not only for the organizers, but also for the participants. And excluding some participants would mean also in some way artificially seemingly getting better results, but it would also mean that we are not growing as a community, and that's the only way worth growing. So.
We didn't have any problem in selecting the participants because the number of participants that then answered was relatively low. We invited 47, if I recall well, participants, and we received 15 answers. So not everybody was interested in testing for Criffonectia parasitica, either because chestnut is not a crop or is not a plant of economic importance in their areas, or because they had already maybe a test to perform, or for other reasons. Anyway, we had only these 15 answers back, and all these laboratories were suitable. They satisfied the criteria for selection.
Yes, we did. It is not always easy to evaluate the competence of a participant. Moreover, a participant can be competent generally on a method, but can fail to perform a test in particular. So I think it's very critical and difficult to state.
Yes, we wanted to select only participants who were willing to implement all the tests selected and who had experience, but in order to have a sufficient data set, we had to make concessions and accept labs that did not want to evaluate all the tests or only part of the samples.
No, we didn't find any difficulties there.
If you have to organize another TPS in the near future, what will you improve in the process of selection of participants?
So we ended up inviting just over 30 participants, and the majority of those who expressed interest we were able to include in the TPS. So I think in the future it'd be nice to be able to reach out to more laboratories that may be able to take part and increase the number of participants overall.
Regarding selection of TPS participants, I think that the rules set up in the frame of that VALITEST project are good, and I have no suggestions for improvement. And if you share these rules with potential participants in advance, most of the labs are able to make judgment by themselves if they can take part or not in particular TPS.
We were quite happy with our current setup, so I don't think we would have changed much. I think we would do it the same way, actually. Yeah.
And if I had to organize another TPS, I would enlarge the number of laboratories. I would, because I realized that yes, the laboratories have their own area of expertise, they have their own area of interest, so it's important to have the widest as possible range of options to make sure that you receive enough answers. Nevertheless, our plan was to have no more than 15 participants. So at the end, we were in our, we managed to reach our goal. But in the future, if I had to do it again, I would send more announcements, I would invite more people.
I think that we had already identified this tape as critical, and we have done our best to select the most appropriate laboratories. if we had been more demanding, we would not have been able to obtain enough participants, and this would have been a problem for the statistical analysis. So today I'm not really able to indicate what we could improve in the process of selection of participants.
We would like to have more information for participants on the real willingness and ability to participate, possibly including the technical sheet during the registration phase. This would allow the potential participants to carefully study the proposed methods and, especially in case of emerging pathogens, made some tests in advance that can help them successfully during the evaluation phase of the TPS results.